Greg Smith here, national recruiting analyst here at Rivals.com, and I am joined by Jed May of EGASports.com, and we are talking commitment, and we're talking quarterback commitment at that, as Georgia has landed its 2025 quarterback in four-star out of Ohio, Ryan Montgomery. Jed, I guess your first gut reaction to the news is what?
It's been a long time coming. I mean, Ryan Montgomery's been a guy that's been on Georgia's radar for about 2 years. Like Todd Monken went up to Ohio, watched him throw, extended an offer, and it was all go from there. And you look at a guy, he obviously hadn't taken any official visits yet, but he's visited Georgia probably 5 or 6 times unofficially from Ohio. So you got to pay your own way to get down there. So he's obviously been very interested in Georgia for a long time. Both Monken and Mike Bobo have done a great job recruiting him. And he finally, got that elusive green light to go ahead and commit, and he didn't waste any time taking advantage of it.
No, he absolutely didn't. And Ryan Montgomery's been his recruitment has been interesting because quarterbacks nowadays, and I feel like I'm saying this all the time, they commit earlier and earlier, right? And you saw for a quarterback, this is actually later in the process. It feels like for it's his cycle in 2025, and so to see him kind of take all of the visits that he did, obviously Georgia won out over Florida and South Carolina, who were kind of his other two finalists, the two other schools that he really had official visits kind of on the books with before he decided to go ahead and pull the trigger for Georgia. But he had been to all of those schools multiple times. And in talking to him, kind of the two things that really stood out to him about Georgia and Kirby Smart's program are two things. One, the competition level and the competitive nature of that program. And I can't tell you how often I hear that, and I'm sure you hear it all the time, talking to kids being recruited by Georgia only, talking to, Eugene Hilton, the wide receiver out of Indiana. And it was one of the first things he said was the competitive nature of the practices. Ryan Montgomery, same way. He said that the competition level really makes you focus in and lock in on your job and be able to make sure you're at your best all the time. And that's the type of environment that he wants to be in. And then it's funny that you mentioned him having to pay his way down to Athens, a handful of times, because that was one of the other big things that he talked about was the city of Athens itself and the college and just the campus feel down there and how he really loved. I think he described it as, he said both of his parents went to Miami of Ohio. This is going to take a good turn for Georgia, though. But he said that it reminded him, Georgia's campus did, of Miami of Ohio on steroids, meaning that it's a really good college town. It's just everything is bigger and more intense down there.
Yeah, it's a great college town. It's a very small town feel. And I guess with Ryan, his brother Luke, being at Ohio State obviously in Columbus, and I've never been to Ohio State's campus, but I know Columbus is the capital, so I don't know if you necessarily get the feel of Athens at a place like Ohio State, and even Columbia, where South Carolina is. South Carolina is in the capital of the state as well. So, but yeah, you talk about the competition level; it gets you better every day in practice. And a guy like Ryan, who might not necessarily start his first year, you can come to Athens and know, hey, I'm going, if he's on the scout team, he's going against the first team defense. You're going against 4 and 5 stars on the other side of the ball. And hey, even if I'm not getting those game reps on Saturdays, you have confidence in knowing you're getting better and better through practice with the goal of, eventually being on the field year 2, year 3.
Yeah, and that's something that is just huge for quarterback's development. You're going to play against future first round guys on that defense because Georgia is going to have those guys. The other thing he did mention, by the way, and it should not go without saying, was the winning aspect of this. He did say that we're going to be in contention for a national championship every year, and that was really important to him too. And obviously that was partially a big selling point for Georgia over those other two finalists, that they're much closer, obviously having just won some, to being able to hit those goals as well. But one thing too, Jed, I wanted to talk about with you is, you kind of look at that quarterback room and how it's shaping up for Georgia going forward. They obviously have their 2026 quarterback and Jared Curtis already in the boat as well. The first commitment for the 2026 class. They've got Ryan Montgomery in right now. You've got guys on campus, just brought in a 2024 quarterback, Ryan Puglisi, as well. So how does that quarterback room kind of shape up to you going forward and kind of construction of what Kirby's doing down there for that room?
Yeah, well, Georgia needed a 25 guy for sure. Kirby Smart wants 4 scholarship guys. And when you look ahead to, when Ryan Montgomery would enroll in January, Carson Beck will be gone. So it'll be Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi, and Ryan Montgomery there in January. So I think Georgia could still look for a portal guy maybe at some point. Um, you know, I do think they're still going to keep recruiting Julian Lewis, the number one quarterback or number one player in 2025 that they've had a relationship with for a long time. But bottom line, you needed to get a guy in the 2025 class, and they've added a guy in Ryan Montgomery who I think has wanted to be a Bulldog for a really long time. I don't think he is going to be the type to come in and transfer out if he doesn't play year one. And you need guys in that quarterback room, and they've gotten a really, really talented one. Like you said, a guy who at this point in the cycle could have very well been off the board already, but he's still there.
Oh, yeah.
And now he will be heading to Athens and join the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and I like the fit. I want to say that too. Is I like the fit here for Georgia because one of the ways that we were talking kind of off mic before this is that I describe Brian as a guy who's very good across the board as a high school quarterback who has not. I also don't think he's hit his ceiling yet either. And he still has room to grow. Very good across the board. He's a cerebral quarterback. He's a guy who has a really strong work ethic, and I think those things tend to lend itself to college coaches really liking a kid. Right? I could see Kirby Smart and that staff really liking him because they know that he's not going to be a wild card. To your point about somebody that, he would transfer out probably after 1 year, I don't see that with him. He's a guy that's going to work behind the scenes and can be kind of a steady hand if and when he does get his shot. And when you're surrounded by the talent that he's going to be surrounded by, that can lead to some really good things, as we've seen with the program in recent years.
Yeah, and that's a pitch. When you mentioned Jared Curtis earlier, that was a big part of Georgia's pitch to him is when you come to Georgia, you're going to be surrounded by the best offensive linemen, the best receivers, best tight ends, best running backs, not to mention going against one of the best defenses in the country every day. Right. So I think when you look at a guy who can be like a point guard of the offense, I think Ryan Montgomery is that guy, which is funny because he plays basketball in Ohio as well.
Yep.
But I think he is a guy who you can win with, who can distribute the ball. He's very accurate. Like you said, he knows the game, and he's going to work behind the scenes. Again, he knows the opportunity that is in Athens in terms of getting better every day, even if you're not necessarily playing on Saturdays to start off your career. So great pickup at this, especially again at this point in the cycle for Georgia to get a 25 quarterback on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to do it for us this time. Breaking down the commitment for Georgia, Ryan Montgomery, the 2025 four-star quarterback out of Ohio. He's Jed May. Make sure you check out his content over at ugasports.com. I am Greg Smith. Keep it locked on Rivals.com for continued coverage of this and more. And we will catch you guys later.